Was it like this last year?
No, I don't think
like,
so. It was the first year. I feel like these teams are gonna, tweak their rosters a little bit. Everything's gonna be fine. One player here, one player there, maybe a tier 2 player up. But it is fucking chaos right now.
Most people have just pressed the big restart button, restart, lower salaries. But of course, if everyone is bringing them down, right, and you're like another org, and even if you have the funds as another org, if you hear that everyone else is bringing down their salaries, well, there's no point in like not bringing down yours, right? Or being like only slightly above. If you were like way above and you can afford to be way above, you still probably, it makes business sense to still, negotiate them down, basically, because no one's going to find anything else better anywhere anyway.
EG was asked to take a pay cut of nearly half last year's salary after winning champions and going on probably the best run in the history of the game.
And obviously we're coming from a Valorant point of view, so we don't care about those other EG rosters. But really, does anyone else care about those
exactly.
other EG rosters?
Who is on the other team?
Probably not, right? What if we don't make champs? Fuck it! Like, this was your chance, EG! This was your chance.
Yeah.
And it's just so annoying.
Sentinels did not pay $1 million buyout to get TenZ because he was going to win them champions. They paid $1 million buyout to get TenZ because he is essentially the face of Valorant. And 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to Cosmic Divide, the #2 podcast about Valorant in the entire world. I'm joined by a very disoriented TMV. He's in a new location. He's got some sparse facial hair, looking a little bit disheveled. Myself, also looking quite disheveled. I've been waking up at 4:30 in the morning to do some VOD review for the Acend Rising team. So,
4:30.
It's how it is when you work in EMEA from the west coast of North America. So yeah, gamer hours out. I'm on that old man schedule, and it's great.
Oh dear, that's rough.
But yeah, this is episode 12. Today we're going to be talking all about the Rostermania. Are you ready for this, TMV? There's a lot. Okay.
There is a lot.
There's just a lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, was it like this last year?
No, I don't think so.
There was a lot of moving around last year, but I don't remember it being like this. I mean, Loud split up. That was kind of big. But I don't remember it being like this, where it's just like every day it just feels like there's something new where it's like, wait, why would a team do that though? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. Feels very, and I guess obviously a big part of that, particularly in Americas, is the salaries, which we're gonna get into early on here. And maybe, yeah, let's just dive straight into it, shall we? Are we ready to just dive straight into this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I can really think of is that going into last year, we were kind of expecting things to be a little bit chaotic. We thought, what are these teams going to look like?
With the 10 orgs that we're getting in. Obviously, that's where most players were wanting to go. Yeah.
But this year, it's like, I feel like both you and I were kind of like, well, it was the first year. I feel like these teams are going to, tweak their rosters a little bit. Everything's going to be fine. One player here, one player there, maybe a tier 2 player up. But it is fucking chaos right now.
Most people have just pressed the big restart button, restart, lower salaries, end it all. Yeah,
that's a good point. Okay, so yeah, let's just jump into sort of maybe the most serious and biggest topic that is driving a lot of these weird chaotic forces, which is the esports winter and the reset of the salary bubble, at least in North American Valorant. Mm-hmm. EG was asked to take a pay cut of nearly half last year's salary after winning champions and going on probably the best run in the history of the game. Thoughts?
I mean, it just doesn't make it's so annoying. And as I brought up multiple times, I made my own video about this as well. Like, for me, yeah, sure, you need to cut back on the salaries. Obviously, that makes sense. But like, and I think Mimi said this on Pledge Chat, like, EG would be better off literally cutting every other roster.
Yeah.
Like every other game, it literally would make more financial sense to keep this roster together and literally cut every other roster and get out of every other game. Yep. Like, I actually think that would make more sense. And obviously, we're coming from a Valorant point of view, so we don't care about those other EG rosters. But really, does anyone else care about those?
Exactly.
Other EG rosters
Who is on the other team?
Probably not, right? And so I'm sorry if you work for EG in another game, but genuinely, they would be better off doing that. And again, as I was saying before, like there's things that like e.g. by doing this, obviously they're going to save money by doing this, but they're also probably like not going to make as much money from doing this as well, right? They're not going to probably make champs next year. Whereas if they kept this roster, they probably would make champs next year. That's a
Mhm.
that's a sizable bit of money. You know, it's 1.25 million this year. Each year it's gone up, so you could maybe expect it will go up again for next year,
Yep.
and then that's a lot of money, right? And obviously you're going to have a competitive roster, and prize money other than champs isn't like
Eh.
massive
Yeah.
for these orgs, but obviously EG would be, you would assume, if they just kept it all together, even I know it's a long time in the future, but they would obviously be one of the favorites for going very deep in tournaments, and maybe they could even win champs again. And again, that is a hefty sum of money. And there's team skins coming, which I assume the EG one would sell very well if they kept this roster together.
Yeah, if they
Because
kept the people that were interesting on their team, like
yes,
Demon
then
One and
people would.
Boostio, and yeah,
And this was the chance for them to get fans, right? This was the chance for them to
exactly.
really like completely revitalize the org. Like this was their literal golden ticket. They didn't even expect to do this, I don't think. And they just like magically found their way into, oh, all of a sudden we're the best team in the world. Wow. And then the next move is, well, let's get rid of everyone though. Like, how is that your next step? How is that? It's like that it's just such a like passive like mind, such a scared mindset of like, like, oh, we really can't, we can't really afford, even to just be one dime over and take a bit of a risk. Like, oh, what if we don't make champs? Or, fuck it, like this was your chance, CG. This was your chance, and it's
Yeah,
just so annoying.
dude. I mean, straight up to me, this just shows that whoever is in charge of these types of the decisions in the organization is completely out of touch with what esports is and what works. Because, and I'm gonna date myself a little bit. I'm gonna go back in history a little bit. EG was one of the best organizations in the world like 8-9 years ago when it was started and run by Alex Garfield. I think that was his name. They were a Dota 2 org and had like StarCraft and Counter-Strike at the time. They got a lot of fans through their StarCraft stuff, but Dota was sort of like the big thing because they won TI. They won TI 5, which was, millions and millions of dollars. They won it with I think he was 16 at the time, this 16-year-old, like the 16-year-old kid, super cocky, very kind of just like almost like Demon One-esque. He was just like, I don't give a shit, came in, absolutely bodied everybody. And it was like this huge crowning moment for North American Dota, which since before that and also since then has been just absolutely floundering. But you know what EG did at that time? They literally locked these kids in for years with ownership stake in the company because they knew that this is how you build a brand. Like, you reward the people who essentially reward you for investing in them, and you build something off that. And this kid Sumail became sort of like the face of Dota. He became the face of North American Dota. He was like the most hyped player and earned them a ton of fans and also a lot of money in the process. And I mean, just look at the parallels between EG and Sentinels. And obviously these are very different organizations, but Sentinels did not pay $1 million buyout to get TenZ because he was going to win them champions. They paid $1 million buyout to get TenZ because he is essentially the face of Valorant. He has a brand that is going to be worth millions of dollars over the course of his career. He brings a ton of eyes to your organization regardless of how they're doing, and he allows you to then like take that fan base and then convert them into longtime viewers and fans of your organization. And EG has been handed this absolutely golden ticket. They not only win, winning is a huge part of like building a brand in esports, but not only do they win champions, but they do it in a way that is such a like storied run, and they do it with players that people like, and they're like appealing to all sorts of people. Like, whether you like the trash talk or not, Boostio and Demon One earn them a ton of fans. And if you don't like the trash talk, then you can look at Calm and Jogamo, who are like super wholesome and really funny and interesting and like give great answers in their interviews. And then if you're a Counter-Strike fan, you can latch on to Ethan and Potter. Like, there's so many opportunities to become a fan of this team. And EG's just like, no, I think we're just going to field 3 super mediocre Counter-Strike rosters instead, who are absolutely going to do nothing and win nothing and earn us no fans and no money and probably cost us about the same amount of money as this team. What are you doing?
Yeah. And then the thing is as well, there's other layers to this as well, right? Where apparently, you know, EG released a video where they were like, oh, everyone from our like reserve roster is now a free agent. Bala did some digging and said that that is actually not true. They aren't free agents. They actually, you know, they need to be basically bought out from EG still, and they are being kind of kept. And you know, it's kind of almost like a ruse of, hey, we let these players go, aren't we such a good org? Like, but that's actually not the case, right? Which is just like, again, what an absolute like slap in the face to just like do something like that. If that is true, just again, like, why are you trying to like nickel and dime your way through like everything, right? Like the money that the money that the team generated in and of itself between the champ skin, the champ's prize money, and you know, just obviously all the fans that would have, you know, come along. Like if they were just a better managed orgs, you would have feel like surely that's like and the stipend as well that Riot is giving you. Surely you can get like enough there to just, you know, like even if you do have to pay them above like, you know, what the normal rate is. Because here's the thing, right? We're talking about everyone's salaries coming down. You know, there's still a possibility that some of these players do end up on EG, right? I don't know exactly what their salary would be. But of course, if everyone is bringing them down, right, and you're like another org, and you, even if you have the funds as another org, you know, if you hear that everyone else is bringing down their salaries, well, there's no point in like not bringing down yours, right? Or being like only slightly above. If you were like way above and you can afford to be way above, you still probably, it makes business sense to still, you know, negotiate them down basically, because no one's going to find anything else better anywhere anyway. Right. So it still could end up where a couple of these players still end up on EG because, you know, some rosters are already being formed and, you know, the market isn't good across the board. So it's like there's only so many spots you're going to find anyway. But I mean, it's just so like, just like, why couldn't we just have like why? You know, it's just like, why did this have to get in the way? And why is it this org who now how can you ever root for this org after doing this? It's just such a like slap in the face. And I really am interested in what Riot thinks about this. Of course, we'll never know what Riot really thinks about these kind of things, but I am like really intrigued to see like behind the scenes, what do Riot really think of like teams like, you know, EG or reported like Cloud9, who, you know, are cutting like beloved players and, you know, letting them go and, you know, cheaping out on stuff. And, you know, like surely Riot's thinking like, okay, yeah, we're giving you this stipend to help you out, but, you know, we weren't necessarily thinking that you were gonna just solely use that and not you know, try and come up with anything on your own. Like you're just gonna, you know, leech off us essentially, like completely. They've got to be feeling a bit like, oh, why are you doing that? And apparently these contracts for the orgs are like, what, 4 years? So, you know, we've still got a way to go, I think, before, you know, anyone gets dropped of these orgs unless something crazy really happens, right? This wouldn't be enough to get rid of a team. But
yeah,
dude, I wonder what Riot thinks.
And that is a very interesting point, because obviously, you know, to get into the partnership system, they had to be evaluated, their financials, their plans for the future and stuff like that. And we all know at this point that esports orgs just lie their asses off about their data and their impressions. It's just like purely misrepresented data to get sponsorships. Everybody's been doing it for years. And I assume Riot knows this because they've been in the business. They probably have even done it themselves to some extent. And so they should be aware that a lot of these orgs are going to be spinning some pretty tall tales to get their favor. So it shouldn't be that surprising that a lot of these orgs are completely mismanaged. But at some point, I would have to imagine that Riot is still surprised at how poorly run some of these orgs are, even with all this experience in the industry. And and it's not just North America. There's horror stories in Pacific, in Europe. It's just all over the place. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds with that regard. But I guess my last few thoughts on the salary thing is that esports players are paid too much. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna come out and say that esports players are paid too much, except for players like TenZ, because there is actual brand value there. You know, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters in a capitalist system is how much money and value you bring into the company that pays you a salary. And TenZ brings in a huge amount of value. That's why you can afford to pay him a very large salary. You know, as great a player as, let's say like Crashies, okay? Crashies has done a lot for, you know, NaVi, Optic, Energy in terms of winning, in terms of contributing to the team. I mean, he even streams and is probably, you know, like a 1,500, 2,000 viewer, maybe even 3,000 or 4,000, depending on like how good the team is and how often he's streaming. But when you think of North American Valorant, or even when you think of Energy, you're not just like, yeah, let me see what Crashies has to say about every single issue, or let me tune into the stream and see what he's up to today. It's like he plays Valorant. He's good at Valorant. You know, he's a great player, and there's some value in that, but it's just not quite the same as somebody who is like reaching beyond the scope of esports and you know, creating influence outside of just like winning and losing games. And so when it comes to the salaries, like, you know, that we've heard, you know, I heard even back getting into the partnership system, people were getting paid $30K a month, $40K a month, like these absurd numbers, which are just so far beyond what the value that they bring in. That needs to change. But also at the time, it kind of made sense, because while there was no, you know, initial fee to get into the partnership league, it wasn't like Riot was like, pay us $20 million and you have a slot. It was like, show us what you have. And so a lot of these North American organizations, they look at Riot's track record of 10 years of League of Legends and, you know, seemingly profitability for this game and lots of opportunities that come with that. They want to get into the Valorant ecosystem, and so they're going to spend a lot of money to do that. And the players know that. The players' agents know that. They know that, oh, hey, I'm coming over from Counter-Strike. I've got a lot of experience. I can make your team good. I can get you lots of eyeballs by winning tournaments. That's a lot of value. So I'm going to demand a very high salary. And then once a few people start doing that and all the players are talking, everybody kind of knows what's going on behind the scenes, except for the fans, you end up with a salary level that is like absurd, really. It's truly absurd for the value that's being provided. But the value is actually being provided initially because it does potentially get them a chance to get into the partnership system. But now that they're in, it would make sense for all these teams to kind of pull things back, because they're not fighting for anything anymore other than just winning and losing. And that value of just winning and losing is not worth like 40 grand a month for each player on your team. Anyway.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I don't really have much to add to that. Yeah, it makes sense that, you know, now would be the time for a market correction. Even if we weren't in esports winter, it would still make sense that this would be the time for like a big market correction either way. But now what we're going to do is just talk about, you know, the different regions, the different roster moves that are obviously some are confirmed, some are just rumors and stuff like that. But we're going to be using the Flynn spreadsheet.
The Flynn spreadsheet. And before we do this real quick, I have to do a super bad pivot, but, you know, maybe these teams could use this extra money that they're saving on salaries to provide other services like boot camps to get these new teams powered up for the new season. And speaking of boot camps, how's that for a segue? I have to thank the sponsor of this episode. Yep, this is a sponsored episode of the podcast, and that is Leet Camp. 1337 Camp, and that is a boot camp organization that helps provide the resources for esports teams to, you know, get better practice and prepare for big events. And actually, the Acend players used Leet Camp based out of Germany to prepare for our Ascension run. And, you know, we performed pretty well. We didn't make Ascension, but we were top 3. We did very well for the entire season. So, you know what? Let's just go ahead and hear from some of the players about their experience using Leet Camp.
Honestly, so far the boot camp's pretty insane. Like, everything we need is here. You know, you've got an Italian restaurant down, a floor down, pretty sick. You got plenty of space in the prac room. You know, you got a TV, you got a big whiteboard, talking about strats and talking on like solving problems, super easy.
So for me, the first thing I really liked was the location itself. Like I like the open space, the area itself. Like there is not a lot of people in here, there is not a lot of noise. Everything is close by, so if you need to go to the gym or just to the store, so like everything is super close to us.
The bootcamp room itself is really big. Also the PCs and double monitor setup is something for me new to see on the bootcamp, so I'm pretty happy about that. But we play on stable like 600 FPS, 500 FPS, which I'm really happy for because that doesn't happen on many bootcamps, to be honest. Yeah, I think the FPS and the thing that the game is going without any issues at all is something I'm super happy for on this bootcamp.
I think my favorite activity was the one where we were throwing water balloons at the MBS and Mr. G. Yeah, it was just fun. Like everyone was like running around. It was like you get a lot of energy from it, but at the same time, it's also like exhausting you. So it's like a really nice exercise to play with your team.
Shit, they're coming.
Oh my god!
Okay, sorry for interrupting you, TMV. Let's get back into the spreadsheet talk.
Yes, so we are using the spreadsheet from September 13th, the most recent one as we are recording this. And, well, let's just dive straight in. And let's actually start with a team where we've heard rumors of like every team is, you know, cutting costs and stuff like that. But this one team, Sentinels, are, you know, seemingly keeping most of their team together. And I haven't heard any whispers of, you know, Sentinels might be cutting costs or whatever. So maybe Sentinels are like the one org who's just like, don't care, we'll burn money, we got TenZ, don't care, let's go, right? Because Sentinels, they're keeping it the same other than their IGL. They bring in John QT from M80. I think most people think that this is a pretty good signing, right? He is an experienced IGL who plays Sentinel, which means Pancada might be going back to Smokes as well.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the move? Give me an early prediction of where you think Sentinels might, how they might be doing as we go into next year.
Oh, you're trying to bait me based off of my tweet that I made the other day. Okay, so when we were talking about roster moves that Sentinels could make in the offseason, I was predicting exactly this. I thought that they should keep their roster. I thought that what they showed at LCQ was actually promising despite the chaotic structure that they were in. I think that Kaplan and Drew Spark are a good staff to build something with. And I think the fact that they were able to, you know, kind of squeeze a little bit of blood out of the stone that was Sentinels during the LCQ, get a little bit of success, show a few flashes of actual real results, was a good sign. And I mean, quite frankly, you're never getting rid of Zekin. He's just, he is the future of this game, in my opinion. We know that Saucy and Pancada can be elite players, and they just weren't because of all the kind of internal issues that were happening with this team. I think the one thing that this team really needed was clear leadership, and they're bringing in an IGL who has had a huge amount of success in Tier 2 with M80, had a huge amount of success with Ghost, who is, also coached by Kaplan at the time. And in my opinion, this combo of IGL and head coach is one of the most, if not the most important thing to build a team around when you first start. You have to have those two in lockstep synergy, and I think you're going to see that this year because they have this history of a successful organization and team before. And then you go ahead and you just tell your fans, don't worry, we're keeping TenZ. And TenZ showed, he can do other stuff. He's not just a jet opper. He can play some other things. He's got good aim, and good aim, as we saw with Demon 1, can translate to any role as long as you have good support around that. So will we see Astra, TenZ playing Astra next year? I don't think so, but it's also possible. I think that this team is positioned very well heading into next year. I said kind of jokingly that they will win the first Masters. That's obviously a very tall task, but I think they will be one of the better teams in Americas, at least at the start of the year, because they already have a good amount of time playing together outside of John. Yeah,
that makes sense. I should have mentioned as well, they've also signed Zelsis as a sub.
Yep.
So you aren't required to sign a sub, but I guess this makes some sense with TenZ and obviously his kind of situation outside the game. Or just having, you know, a sub in general. I mean, it can't hurt, you know. And
especially
Zell's-
one that can play and has proven to be able to play like with any player and in any role. So it seems like a good flex sub.
Yeah. So yeah, if Sentinels ever need a sub, they've got probably the best one, to be honest. And I was maybe somewhat surprised that Celsius was willing to, you know, take that role, but I guess, you know, he's been on Sentinels before, and I think he mentioned that, you know, he, you know, had a chance to go to Sentinels last year and and chose not to, but you know, he ends up back on Sentinels. But let's move on from them, and the next team I want to go to is Cloud9. And here in Cloud9, we've got, obviously they're kind of restarting. For those of you who don't know, MCE's gone. You know, most of the players are gone. Right now, this is what it says their roster is. It has Oxy, Zeppa, Vanity, and Jake, all very likely to basically be with the team. And then there's like a rumored fifth, no one's quite sure, but Whippy is right there on the spreadsheet, and Imi is their coach. So Imi was with G2 last year, right?
Yeah. And then 2 weeks ago announced that he was coaching a Game Changers team, and has apparently decided not to do that anymore.
Yes, and now is maybe with going to Cloud9, I guess. So just looking at that team, Oxy, Zeppa, Vanity, Jake, Whippy, what do you think of that team versus, you know, what do you think of MCE leaving and all the other players leaving? What do you think of Cloud9? What's going on with Cloud9?
I mean, so the MCE departure, I think, is just very bad. I don't really know how else to put that. I think that, you know, especially because it seemed like he had been kind of part of the initial like roster building this year, and so something changed in the process of that, and then he's out, and then they go ahead and re-sign Vanity, who obviously played for them for a while and then was cut last year because of money, I guess, but now he's back at a lower salary, I assume, having sort of done his detention in tier 2 on Shopify last year. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I honestly don't know what to think about how this org is being run, how this team is being built. Oxy, I think, is a very, very talented player, extremely raw as far as his talent goes. I don't think that he developed that much last year, if I'm being perfectly honest. I thought he came out very, very hot on G2 and then just kind of stayed at that level the entire season. I don't think that I saw any particular huge levels up from him, but he is very, very good and could become like a top duelist player. Zeppa staying, I mean, I've always thought Zeppa is very good, so that seems fine. I assume that things will be a little bit different because I always thought that him and Leaf were like really tight and had very good synergy. So it's gonna be interesting without Leaf and Zelsis there. Obviously, he and Vanity do have history. Jake staying, Vanity coming in. Role problems there is what I see. You know, they both play smokes as sort of their best role. I would assume that Vanity will go to the Sova role that he's played in the past, but I don't think that's his best role, and that was always kind of like one of the main issues with this team in the past was, oh, well, now that Zeta's gone, I guess Vanity's going to step into Sova, and it just has never been successful before. And then I don't really know what to think about Whippy. He's had moments of brilliance on V1 and looked okay in a few of the games on G2, but is he a tier 1 talent? Not in my opinion, but I don't really have a whole lot to base that off of.
I'm looking at this roster and I'm just,
I think it's pretty poor, to be honest.
I have a lot of doubts. Like I don't think that necessarily like the floor is maybe okay. Like you have players like Zeppa, Vanity, even Jake from last year, right? Where the floor of the team might not be so low, but the ceiling feels like it's like I can't.
It's like a 5th, 6th team maximum.
Yeah, I can't picture this team like breaking into the top 3 or, you know, doing what Cloud9 did last year or anything even close to that, really, because at one point Cloud9 were the best team. So it's like, I'm looking at this roster. I just don't really see it personally. But I think we should move on. Let's move on to 100 Thieves, shall we?
Yeah, sounds good. This has been an interesting developing situation.
Yes. So 100 Thieves. are getting rid of some players. They're apparently keeping, or it seems it's likely that they are keeping Cryo, Asna, and Bang. They've let go of Derek and Stella.
Yep.
And they've signed Zix from EG, who is EG's assistant coach.
Yes.
And is now 100 Thieves. That's like been confirmed, I'm pretty sure as well. That or has it?
I don't think 100 Thieves has actually announced it, but I think it's like pretty well.
It's like known. And then apparently they're bringing in Boostio from EG, obviously. And then the fifth is kind of a bit uncertain. Like, there's been rumors of BCJ, there's been rumors of Calm, there's been, just basically any initiator you can think of from NA, like maybe 100 Thieves fifth, basically. So that's the roster. We seem to have 4 players in Cryo, Asana, Bang, and Boostio, with Boostio being the IGL. And then the fifth, we don't quite know yet. This is an interesting one for me. Because, again, I'm looking at this team, and I think Cryo, Asna, Bang, like those 3, again, if I'm just looking at Cryo, Asna, Bang, Boostio +1, I feel like the ceiling could be quite high. But I feel like the range of outcomes for a roster like this is quite big. I feel like this could go wrong. Like if we get Cryo, Asna, Bang maybe from, the end of last year where things just aren't good and they don't look good. If we get that version of those 3 players, and Boostio, in a new system on a new team, like, can't corral that, right? Can't make it work, then I could see this going quite bad. But I also think the ceiling of this team, if, Cryo gets informed and Asuna and Bang are informed, and Boostio is playing like he was for EG, and whoever they bring in, is doing well, then I think the ceiling is really quite high for 100 Thieves. So this is a team that I'm kind of like, obviously we'll have to see who that fifth is, but I think there's a large range of outcomes that I could see for 100 Thieves.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think that the Cryo, Asuna, Bang trio were probably the highest ceiling players individually on that team last year. And then we talked about this roster like several episodes ago where I said that I thought they had like a culture problem, where it was just everybody in their team was like too sort of similar personality, like not, hype enough. And if you bring in somebody like Boostio, that does seem like a pretty good answer to that. Again, I do like the potential pairing of IGL plus coach that they worked with
know each other,
under a successful system in the past. And quite honestly, for the initiator role, I think any of the options that have been kind of rumored seems okay. BCJ, Com, EU, Flya. Or somebody else potentially, like where's Verno going? Actually, I don't know if Verno is old enough to play, but if you could go out and get somebody like Com and Boostio, that seems like a very good move for 100 Thieves, because not only do you keep the players that people and fans of your team like and have a lot of potential, but then you bring in 2 like very likable personalities that can kind of boost not only the atmosphere, but also potentially sort of like the experience gap at these big events as well. Now that they've also done this, I kind of like the direction that 100 Thieves is going.
Yeah, it feels like there was, when we first started this, like there was rumors of 100 Thieves are going full budget, like, like kind of like Cloud9, where, everyone's gone unless they take a massive pay cut. See you later. But it seems more like,
and then EG happened.
and then EG happened, and it seems like 100 Thieves, their version, I guess it's because of 100 Thieves, like their version of budget is just better than other orgs' version of budget, I guess, where it's it actually still looks perfectly fine. And I think a lot of it will come down to the 3 that have stayed, right? Like as I said, if they play at a good level and fit into the system and it works, then this could be a very good team. But if you got 3 players who are playing like they were at the end of last year, where you'd get Cryo would have some good games, Asna didn't look great towards the end of last year, Bang definitely seemed to have a step down from his peak as well. Like, to me, like, you can't have 3 of your 5 players just not doing that well. And I think it's an interesting challenge for Boostio as well, right? To come into like he's coming in, and obviously he's coming in as a world champion, so like the other players are probably going to be like, well, yeah, let's listen to him because you just won a world championship, right? But like if things start to go wrong, I'd be very interested to see kind of what happens, right? Like,
right,
it's a weird dynamic where if things start going wrong, does Boostio go, I need to change, or does he just start thinking, well, this team just isn't good, right? Like I know I can do it, but this team is just no good. And then obviously we'll see what the fallout from that would be. But yeah, 100 Thieves not looking too good. Let's move on to NRG. And energy is a mixed bag. We know that FNS and SOM are gone.
Yeah, talk to me about this. Talk to me about the departure of FNS and SOM. What do you think about this? And it kind of seems that we also heard rumors that there was maybe like Victor and Crashies wanting a change. Essentially, like it was a choice between FNS and SOM or Victor and Crashies. I don't know if that's real or not.
I don't know either. I think it's a weird one, right? And obviously we don't know what the team dynamic was inside. Chet apparently is still staying for those of you who are wondering as well. So we're still gonna have Chet as the coach. SOM and FNS leaving, I think makes sense, to be honest, in a way. Some less so. FNS leaving, I think, makes more sense because I just think that like idea of SOM, FNS, Victor Crashies +1. Whoever you could have changed artists, and we almost said it without even mentioning artist is gone as well.
Yeah.
Just for those of you wondering, that was kind of I think something that a lot of people expected, but I just felt like it just had ran its course basically, right? As I was saying, like SOM was a very good player last year, but he wasn't as good as Marved was in the year before with Optic, right? Where Marved was like a top 5 player in the world for like the whole year. And they also had like clearly the best player in the world as well, right? In that year as well. And when you've got like 2 of the top 5 players in the world, and they obviously had a very good year, but it wasn't like, they won one tournament and they came second in another. So they obviously had a very good year, but it wasn't like, they won all 3 tournaments and they were clearly like, just so dominant that it was like, wow. And that was with 2 of the best 5 players. You're not going to have 2 of the 5 best players, all of the time. That's just not going to happen, right? With like the players are so close that form is going to change it a lot and stuff like that. Like it's just not going to happen. So I just thought that it made sense that they need to make some change. Not that any of the players don't deserve to be in tier 1, because obviously they've all kind of proved it individually, at different times in different ways. But it just felt like it had run its course, and so now we've ended up with Victor Crashies. Apparently, Marved is going there.
That seems likely.
It has as a likely option that Marved is going to NRG, which is an interesting, like reunion there, I guess, as well.
Kind of makes sense to me.
We don't know if he's IGLing or not either. And then
Certainly
the rumor mill is like the rumor mill for the others is like who knows what's going on the spreadsheet here. It has maybe Aspas, maybe Sadak, maybe Demon One, maybe Tex, maybe Ethan, maybe like literally like who knows who else is going to be joining this team. I mean, if it was Aspas and Sadak, that would be crazy. that would be like,
crazy.
Or if it was Demon One as well. The problem is if it's not Sadak, then
who's the IGL?
Who's IGLing for this team? Is it Marved? Like, I don't know about that. Like, so who knows where this will go with the rest of NRG? I think that a change needs to happen. But yeah, without knowing those other 2 players, it's going to be difficult. But this could go a lot of ways, I think, depending on who they get.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I kind of hope that it is Aspas and Sadak together. I don't think that just getting one of those would make sense to me. And if it's not those 2 together, I mean, Demon One seems like a great like fit for the NRG brand because they like to do a lot of content. I feel like they could really build his sort of like whole mythology at this point. I do wonder how he would fit in with Victor and Crashies. Like on a personality basis, I feel like that's fairly different to me. Victor and Crashies have always seemed very sort of like business-like in all of their approach to the game. Like every time we see them in interviews and stuff like that, it seems like, this is like it just seems kind of like more like serious and professional, I guess, than a lot of other teams. That was always the vibe I got from like them and Optic and just in general. So I'd be curious what the personality clash would be. Don't want to spend too much time on this just because we really don't have any information. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. I think it's probably going to be a pretty good team regardless, just with the core of Victor, Crashies, Marv, but those other pieces are very important roles too.
Yeah, okay. Let's quick fire the rest of Americas then, because like those are like the teams that are making like massive.
Moves.
I guess Loud would be let's quick fire on Loud first. Aspas is gone. Whoa.
Yeah.
Sadak might be going. Whoa. Apparently here on the sheet it has someone called Havoc. I'm not familiar with the Brazilian tier 2 scene, so I honestly couldn't tell you how good Havoc
Me
is.
either.
And Sadak is like a question mark on whether staying or leaving. But Cowanzine, Tweez, and Les probably staying, and Fraud as well probably staying. So quick thoughts on Loud. Aspas gone, Sadak maybe gone.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think rebuilding this roster without like the main experience is going to be a little tough. But I kind of trust Fraud, and I trust the talent of Cowanzine, Tweez, and Les to continue to develop and get even better. So I feel like this is a team that maybe will take a bit of a step down this year in terms of performance, but will probably steadily get better, and then maybe even coming into next year be like really good again.
Yeah. If they keep Sadak, I'm still confident that this would be definitely a top half team.
Yeah.
Like definitely top half team. And then, as you say, maybe by the end of the year, they're like actually competing to win stuff as well. So yeah, but keeping Sadak, I think, will be big for that team. FURIA, again, have made some weird changes as well. Conan, who was their sub, is now being played as their IGL. They've kept Khalil, they've kept MW, they got rid of DG. They got rid of QCK, and they're bringing in someone called Liazzi. Again, not familiar with the Brazilian tier 2 scene. And then there's the rumor of King coming in, which from Leviatan, which would be crazy because obviously Furia are a Brazilian team, and King, I don't know if he speaks Portuguese or not, or if he's just going to wing it with Spanish and Portuguese being somewhat similar. This one feels like one step forward, one step back. I don't really getting rid of DG. I'm surprised that I'm not seeing like DG on like, if they're getting rid of Aspas, I'm surprised he isn't on the Loud like sheet of rumors like to join. I'm very surprised with that, or on MiBR or whatever.
He's not on
right?
any of the Brazilian teams.
Yeah, he's
actually,
not on any of them, which is kind of crazy because obviously he's good enough. I mean, and I actually think if he went to Loud and had like that kind of system and Sadak kind of teaching him, to rein it in and dial it back a bit at times, like they would be really good again. So yeah, a bit weird. Don't really know what to think, particularly if King goes to this team. That would be very odd. What do you think?
I think I read at some point. God, I'm such like a forum troll, just combing through the muck of VLR and Reddit all the time. I think I read something somewhere in that just malaise of terrible information, and that MW0 was like kind of put in charge of this roster in terms of like they were like, here's the keys to the car, you figure it out.
Just bringing all his friends in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do think it would be interesting if this King rumor did actually pan out. It would be interesting to see King not have to IGL.
Yeah,
because
I think
I've
he'd
always
be
thought
unleashed.
Yeah, he's a crazy good player, but I've always been a little bit questioning of his like actual IGLing.
Yeah. MiBR is just a mess, as you would expect. They've got like they're apparently keeping RGL, getting rid of most people, maybe keeping BZK. Like it's kind of all over the place. Who knows what will happen? I honestly don't know enough about Brazilian tier 2 to tell you about this. It feels like again DG would be an obvious pickup, but who knows? I still don't really see it for them, to be honest. But who knows? They might pick up they might pick up the next Aspas. Who knows? Or maybe pick up Aspas.
Right. The biggest thing for this team is that surely their roster this year can't be worse than last year. Like even if they just get 5 random tier 2 players, they're going to have probably at least the same, if not slightly better performance, because they were atrocious this year.
Yeah. True. Leviatan, apparently it's mostly keeping the same. I mean, it still has King as likely staying with Leviatan. They got rid of their coach, owner. Taco is gone. For some reason, Screwface is on here. I don't know if Screwface can speak Spanish or not. Aspas apparently has been linked with Leviatan as well, which would be a great signing for them, I think. Like,
oh yeah,
Aspas, King, Nozwa, Mazzino, Shy. If they can bring in a coach as well, and there was rumors of Happy, now it's got someone in here called Goat, who I don't really know. But if they could bring in a coach who can make the most of all of this and bring in Aspas as well, that would be a crazy, crazy team, no?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that realistically the biggest sort of weak point of this team last year was Takalia. As good as he was a couple years ago, he just really did not step up last year, and you bring in the best duelist in North America. Seems like an okay fix, as long as the language stuff works,
Yep. Crew getting rid of Nags and Exjedi. Apparently, Klaus might be on his way out. Don't know. Keeping Melsa. I'm not sure who MTA is. Keeping Kesnet as well. That's good. So Melsa, Klaus, Kesnet, maybe Liazzi. Who's Liazzi? Where have I heard that name before? I'm gonna have to actually get this one up. I'm gonna search VLR for Liazzi because I've heard that name before. So
yeah,
who is Liazzi playing for?
He was on one of the Brazilian teams. Was he on
Keed?
Okay,
Keed Stars, VO
okay.
Keed. That's who he was playing for. That's why I would have heard it. So there you go. Apparently he might be going there. I mean, they got rid of Nags finally. Like it felt like that was probably always coming in. You know, it feels like Nags has somehow stuck around for a very long time without performing like too well for quite a while. Klaus is a weird one where he had an insane LCQ, but then he's kind of just been like. He didn't do very well. Obviously, they went 0-9 in the season. Of course, he didn't do well. Then he
really
was insane for LCQ and then didn't do well in champs again. It's like, I don't know what I would do with Klaus. Like, and it probably depends on how he is inside the org, I would guess. But
right,
I'm not super hopeful, but at least like even Kesnet.
Yeah, and I think Melser's a good player too. Like,
yeah,
I would be curious to see like how this team develops, just because it always just kind of seems like Kesnet needs like just like one more piece of like firepower around him where it's just not always on him to carry the game. And so I'd like to see that added.
That's what happened during LCQ.
Yeah.
And then G2 are keeping everyone but Tech, so G2 is X the guard. That hasn't been confirmed yet either, has it? That G2 are getting in, but it's been heavily rumored that it is.
Yeah, it's
G2.
been heavily rumored. All the guard players except for Tex have like done the signed GIF emoji. Yeah. It's kind of been like it's kind of known at this point.
But we don't know how it works. Like, have Riot approved G2 yet? Like, what if Riot just says no, you can't? Like, I don't know how it works, but
right. Yeah, because they didn't want G2 in last time, and
so
apparently they're paying crazy amount of money to get this. Okay, anyway.
But Jonah, Trent, Valen, Net, and Leaf here is the question mark, and also Aspas is also maybe signing with the team. You know what? If they get Leaf or Aspas, that would be insane, and yeah, that would be like already one of like a top performing team, no doubt.
I think so. I mean, this team is clearly proven they have the system, they've got the synergy, they've got the the friendship, they've got the work ethic.
I didn't crack duelist. Like
all they really needed. I mean, Tex did pretty well last year. He was pretty damn good last year, but in my opinion, he was a big step down from Saya player from the original Guard roster. And I think if you were to compare him 1-to-1 to Leaf or Aspas, you're taking those two 100% of the time.
Yep. Definitely agree. Let's move on to EMEA then. And who shall we start with? Well, let's start with FNATIC, where the news from FNATIC is that Mini is stepping down as their coach. Apparently I heard a rumor as well that he's reached an agreement with FNATIC. So probably as an assistant coach, I would assume. And they are confirmed keeping the roster together, right? So FNATIC aren't making any changes. So you would probably assume, I think they're the only top team that isn't making any changes. So that, I mean, it's FNATIC. So you would assume that they're probably going to be favorites going into the start of next year, just considering that they're staying together. Mini is still there, you know, so it's like whoever comes into coaching position, it's a very weird one, whoever takes that coaching position, because it's like, how much of a stamp of your thing are you going to have if Mini sing behind you? Like, I'm sure not that Mini would be like, you know, some domineering, controlling, you know, like get out of my way.
But there's always in the back of your head.
But like, it's a bit of an awkward situation almost to go into, where you've got this team that has done so well together, and now obviously you're just like in there, and I guess you'd just be trying to like maybe just push them in directions or whatever, but not like, you know, like you're not probably taking over that team. But honestly, you might not need to. So FNATIC keeping it together. I don't think there's really much to say about this one, to be honest. No,
I mean, who are you going to replace? Who are you going to improve? Like the way that Kojo put it, who's their GM, he's like, we went 24-3 last year. Why would we change anything? And I think that's totally valid. I think that the one thing I do want to talk about is the head coach position, which, like you said, because of this sort of weird, especially if Mini did in fact sign an agreement to stay on there, I kind of hope it's like in a GM role where he's like above the head coach, because him being an assistant coach would be like very strange in terms of that relationship.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like you have to go out and get somebody like really experienced. Like it has to be somebody in the scene who is like extremely respected. Otherwise,
I don't even know who. I honestly can't think of anyone that I think would be like, oh, that makes sense.
yeah.
Like I literally, because this is the thing with Valorant, right? Like no team went on like a massive, like dominant winning streak enough, or that isn't already obviously with a team that you'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I honestly can't think of anyone that I would be like, no, yeah, that's obviously the right move.
CNED.
As coach, yes, okay, CNED is the answer. Let's move on then to your favorite team, Team Liquid. Team Liquid. I mean, this.
I don't want to talk about this team.
Yeah, this team has been in a massive like. So right now, there's 4 players on there. So apparently they're keeping the coaching staff together, which I don't mind too much. But
Meh.
Yampy is, I'm pretty sure Yampy is fully signed and is signed through like 2026 or something. Nats is apparently staying as well. Good.
Yep.
And then you've got, it says here that Redgar is still likely staying. And then you've got Mystic, ex-FNATIC, who's apparently maybe going to be joining. And then just straight up, who knows, trials for the last one of Team Liquid. Safe is gone. Soulcast is gone.
Yep.
And what do you think? Go on. You love Team Liquid, so let's hear the Team Liquid fans' take.
Okay, well, I think Soulcast had to go. I've been kind of on this train for a while. I don't know. I think he had to go. It's been long enough. The results haven't been there. Safe being gone, I know that you feel pretty passionate about this. I feel like this is a mistake, but I also understand it because, in my opinion, based on what I know, which is very, very little, but what I do know is that Safe is a very sort of strong personality, has a lot of ideas about the game. We heard rumors about him kind of like wanting to take over the IGLing to some extent. I would imagine that there's a bit of a clash between him and whether it's the coaching staff or it's Redgar or it's all 3 of them. Probably was just not going to work where you keep Redgar and Emil and Safe. So one of them had to go. I assume they probably went with, and I think initially when this sheet first came out, it was like Redgar was out and Safe was in. So I assume probably what ended up happening is, again, just total baseless speculation, that they wanted to keep Redgar with Nats because that synergy has been, proven to be good. You're keeping Nats no matter what, and they just want to keep sort of like a consistent basis to build from. That being said, I mean, who do you get here? Like, are we gonna bring in like? I don't see CNED anywhere. Who's going to come in and play the duelist role for this team? Is it going to be some like tier 2 player?
You know what they're going to do? They're going to put Yampy on duelist again.
Well, if they do that, then I'm selling this team. And that's not like slighting Yampy, but it's just they've already tried that. They've already tried it. It kind of feels like, I don't know. Maybe this team just needs like to rethink their staff that's building it. Maybe,
I don't know. Yeah, it feels like you're saying like, oh, if it's a power struggle between like Safe and like Redgar and the coaching stuff, like I don't know. I just think the Safe's just a really good player, and this is the thing, right? Like you're gonna get like, even if Safe, let's say, and this is all rumors, I'm not calling Safe out here and I don't know anything, but let's say that you do have a very difficult person on your team. There's always like a level, like if you're Cristiano Ronaldo, you put up with quite a lot to have that player in your team, and it doesn't matter, right? You just put up with it, right? And it's always that balancing act of like, how much can you put up with versus how good of a player they are, right? To me, Safe's a very good player. So he would have to have been a massive problem, like an absolute, like there is literally no way. I'm not in there. I don't know. And I don't want to call Safe out and say that he is a massive problem. I don't know. But that to me just feels like, have they got that balance right? And then even if someone is a massive problem, right? I feel like good leadership can overcome stuff like that, right? They can find ways of you know, making everyone happy, or at least making it so that, you know, it's okay. And winning solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you can win with a team, people will be happy either way. Let's just move on. Team Liquid, they're such an odd team. Like, they're still, like, Yampy is a very good player, Nats is a very good player, right? So you've already got two very good players, and so you'll probably, whoever else you bring in, you'll probably be fine. But again, like, I'm looking at Team Liquid, and I'm always just like, you're surely an org that wants to be like winning things, but look at you versus FNATIC.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no way you're even close to them right now, and so
No.
it's just like I don't really get it.
I'm
Let's
going to be
move on.
excited to tune into their first couple of games just to see. Just
Yeah.
to see. And after that, I probably won't watch them.
Yeah, let's move on. Team Vitality, they apparently are like pretty much set
Cooking.
here.
Cooking.
According to the spreadsheet here, we've got Runner, who is playing for Diamond against Acend last year. We got Safe. Hey, Safe. Look, we just mentioned him. Destrian, I think, is going to be IGLing this team now. There's a player called Kix, who honestly, I don't know who Kix is. I'll be honest. And we got Sender. Salah's still the coach. They have a massive like coaching staff behind him as well, apparently. And so, yeah, what do you think of this team?
I mean, obviously, first thing is that this team was never really able to realize their potential last year for, you know, unfortunate reasons. But I think they showed a lot of potential at the beginning of the year. I wasn't particularly sold with like Destrian and Sender. I thought that Mulsey was pretty good, and I've always been a fan of.
I was surprised they got rid of Mulsey, but yeah.
But it's not like anybody was like particularly bad on this team as far as like performances go. It was always just like they were decent, and then had some very good games, and then sometimes the decent wasn't like good enough.
Yeah.
I think that bringing in somebody like Safe, who has you know, a lot of firepower, is a good idea, because they needed more firepower on this team. Kix, don't know anything about him. I assume he's just kind of a cracked zoomer. Okay, there's sort of like a precedent for just bringing in a bunch of cracked zoomers. Runner, kind of a cracked zoomer. I remember him not only from Diamant, but also he played at the Red Bull Campus Clutch and was like frying there on one of the European like university teams. So he's really good. So this could be one of those things where they're just like, all right, let's just get a bunch of really good aimers, and then we'll just kind of figure it out from there, which I think can definitely work in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It feels like this is a team that's probably going to be okay. Was Destrian IGLing when they were on Oglu? Because when Salah was there with Destrian on Oglu, I can't remember who was IGLing for him, but it might have been Destrian. And if that's the case, then that would have been I can understand, like, they've let go of Bonecold, they let go of Molsey, as you said. I'd be shocked if someone doesn't pick up Molsey. Then that is a shock to me, because Molsey, again, I think is a very good player. So yeah,
I think Boo was IGLing on Oglu.
Oh yes, of course, he probably was. You're right. Yeah. So I guess Destrian might be IGLing for the first time then, unless Kix or Runner is an IGL, and I don't know. But yeah, interesting team. My thing is Runner is a duelist player, but I really hope that Safe is on duelist, because again, I just like Safe is fine as an initiator, but he just should be on duelist. Like
I mean, he just is. He's like one of the best Jets, one of the best Rays, and one of the best Neon players in Europe. So, yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Team Heretics, another team that is kind of confirmed here. They're keeping Boo, and they're keeping Benji, who's played one game for them. They're bringing in Mini Boo, and then they're bringing in a Turkish duo of Woot and Rienz, who I don't know much about, to be honest. Woot, who did Woot play for? I've heard that name before as well.
So Rienz played for Heat most recently in S2. He
played for Fireflux, of course.
S2G.
He did.
Okay.
Yes, that's why I've seen him play. Because Fireflux were a team that were like really hyped early on, but then actually didn't make it to Ascension. They kind of crashed out at the end. They're keeping Neil Zinho and Weber as their assistant coach. Ooh, what do we think of this then? To me, again, this is like I don't know enough about Woot and Rienz to like say they could be absolutely correct. And Many Boo as well, who is Boo's brother.
Yes, I believe so.
I don't know enough about the three of them to truly say, but bringing in and Benji as well, like you're bringing in such inexperience to the tier 1 scene. I just don't know how well, particularly early on. I don't have high hopes. Maybe by the end of the year it could be good, but I think early on we could see a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Boo was never that impressive last year, but also this team was just a mess.
Yeah.
So to me, if you're gonna go the route of like fully rebuilding your roster, I kind of like the approach of like getting rid of all sort of like the tenured players. You know, they finally released Mixwell, or maybe staying on a content creator. I don't know, but Mixwell is not on the starting roster. Kellox is out. You Zeke, obviously. You get rid of all the players who kind of have like this, maybe, I don't want to say like ego, but just sort of like these expectations. And you just bring in a bunch of like young, inexperienced people that you can just kind of mold and just like allow them to grow. So as long as Heretics commits to just like kind of sucking early on and just like being fine with that and just allowing these kids to grow, I'm totally cool with this roster. I don't know really anything about it, but it seems like an approach that I can get behind, as long as they're not like, oh, we're 0-5, time to start switching players out. It's like, no, you got to give them like a full couple of seasons.
Yeah, it's better to be young and like inexperienced and be struggling than old and like experienced and struggling. Yes, that's definitely the better way of doing it. And as you say, even if just like, you know, one of the 4 players, the like newer players that they picked up, like ends up being really, really good, you know, you can kind of just be on like the FNATIC train of like, you know, you just keep the players who are good, and then you just keep trying different players in those other spots until you eventually just have a super team, right? Like that's the way FNATIC did it. They were just kind of ahead of the curve, and they've ended up with their roster. So yeah, that's probably the way to do it. Moving on to Giants, obviously, who made champs, but then Rhyme retired to focus on his studies. So that's one place that they need to fill. Apparently, that's the only change, according to this, that they are making. Obviously, is filling Rhyme's spot, although Nuki has a question mark here again. God knows what that means. But apparently Enzo is trialing his IGL. That's going to become a theme with a lot of these teams, apparently, is that Enzo is trialing everywhere to be an IGL. If they did bring in Enzo, again, I kind of like it. Again, it's a team that, if, like you say, you got Hoodie, Nuki, Cloud, Enzo, Fatinho, it's a team that I'm like, yeah.
The Enzo Cloud role issue is a little bit concerning to me.
As I said, I kind of mentioned this on Pletcher when I was on. Like, I don't care about roles as much at this point, because you don't know what the meta is, so don't worry about it. Like, you've got a whole off season to train to whatever you think, right? Just like, and they'll pick up eventually. They're pro players, you know. This game isn't fucking rocket science. We need to stop like acting like this game is, you know, like.
But
you could never play Killjoy.
But my comps.
You could like, a pro player could just never learn another agent. No, it's not. Like Demon 1 went from fucking Jet to Astra in the space of 2 weeks. True. You'll be fine. So yeah, my problem with this roster again is I kind of wish, and I don't know who it would be, to be honest, but I'm just like, they feel like they're one top tier player away from being like a really good team. I feel like this team is like good, you know, like, but I still feel like if they bring in Enzo, they're still Giants. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. They're still just this gatekeeper team of like, they're the good team, and if you're better than Giants, then you're a really good team, and you're the teams that are going to be going to international tournaments. And Giants are always going to be like maybe making international tournaments. They're always going to be on the edge, and that's just who they are. And I want them to be better than that.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not this year. Maybe next year.
No. Yeah. Okay, moving on to Koi.
Who is trialing everybody in tier 2.
Koi, the great trialers, as they will be known. And Koi is an interesting one because they're getting rid of Coldamenta. So the Barbar Coldamenta connection that went back a long, long time in this game has now apparently been severed. And I'm very interested to see just how Koi will play. Whose idea is it to play this slow? Is it Barbar's or is it Coldamenta's? Because I'm gonna find out, right? Yeah. And to me, Koi coming into last year, I was looking at that roster and I was like, that's a really good roster. You could go very far with that. And they are keeping Trex, Starkso, and Shados. And I really like Trex, Starkso, and Shados. I think they're really good players.
Yep.
They're also trialing Enzo for IGL, who again I think would be a good IGL fit for them and make a lot of sense and stuff like that. So I kind of think that would be okay. And then Alive / Kaiko from Apex, Alive, our boy from Acend, and everyone else trialing as well for this team apparently.
Including Musashi also from Acend.
Yes, including Musashi from Acend. We'll have to see who they end up getting. This will be an interesting test for Barber because let's say they, let's just say they get Enzo and let's say they have Alive, right? And then you've got Trex, Starks, or Shados. That roster is easily good enough to finish in the top half. Like it should be, like that should be minimum in my opinion. So
Alive is very good.
Yeah, that should be easy top half minimum, and like you should be in the playoffs and you should be, like competing to go to like the international events, and maybe even like make 1 or 2 of them. If they like finish how they did this year and they're just no good, then to me, I'm like Trex and Shados. I just think are very, very good players. And if they brought in some other good players as well, it has to come back to the coaching staff that something is going wrong and their approach is wrong. So this is a lot of pressure to me on Barber, because if it doesn't work this year, then I would be like, well, it's clearly a problem there because. I mean, Trex especially, I think, is just such a good player. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the real pivot point for this team, unless it is a coaching staff thing, is the IGL. Because, like, if it's not Enzo, then who? Because who's going to lead this very, very high firepower team?
We're just going to clone Enzo and just have him play on all these teams to IGL. I mean, that's the thing. There's such an IGL problem. I mean, this is the thing. Like maybe Liquid picked Redgar because there's nobody else. Because there's no IGLs. Yeah, who Enzo was trialing for Liquid as well. We forgot to mention that's just another team that that's the 4th clone of Enzo. By the way, but yeah, Koi. We'll see how it goes. I still think they've got potential, but I was so high on them this year to start off with that I feel snake bitten.
Yeah,
and I don't want to trust them.
You can't do it again.
I don't want to trust them. NaVi have got rid of CNED. That was confirmed very early on into the offseason. Who isn't on this spreadsheet somehow. Somehow Foot and BBL, maybe it's just because, Flynn doesn't have the...
He's coming back to Acend, baby.
Flynn doesn't have the, connections in the Turkish scene, which would be very likely. But, CNED gone. Artists coming back. It seems that's going to happen. Weirdly, Zipan and Doombros have question marks here. Maybe they'll go, maybe they won't. But I'd be very surprised if they left. I feel like NaVi are just going to run it back with the old FPX. And honestly, again, particularly early on in the year, this should be the second best team. I know people get on Angel for all of that and all of that. This should be the second best team. What are you laughing at? Do you not think? Do you not agree?
I mean, I do, but it's just so funny because it feels like every time we look at an Angel team, we're like, this is the clearly, far and away the second best team right after FNATIC or challenging FNATIC for the best spot, and then they are just absolutely off the goop. So, but yes, if they keep Zipan and Doombros and run it back, it just seems like it should work. It's already worked in the past. If they get rid of Zipan and Doombros, who knows? But It seems so logical to be like, all right, we tried somebody else. Artist tried something else. It didn't work. Bring him back. We already know there's like a rapport there. He got the bag.
It should just work. Yeah, I think it'll just be good. And I think it. I think a lot of. I really, 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 really hope the Jet and Chamber aren't good. Like I really want Jet and Chamber to not be good the next time we see Pro Valorant. Like I'm so interested in seeing, and they're gonna bring out another duelist, and I bet what's gonna happen is that duelist will just be like a good opping duelist, and that will just be the meta, and I'm just gonna be so annoyed. But I really want to see a meta where we don't have any of those, and I feel like this NaVi team would actually kind of thrive in that situation, right? Just put Zipan on Raze. artists can. I know a lot of people get on Keith Joy and all of that, but artists can play a lot of different stuff. It's not that Jet and Chamber wants you play on any maps, right? Like they will still be on some maps, I'm sure.
Just not every map.
Yeah, just not like every map. Like we get like 3 of the maps where it's like you don't play either of them. We're already seeing that somewhat with maps like Lotus and whatever, or maybe even Bind, right? Where you maybe don't see them as much, although you see a bit of Chamber on Bind. But like, I want to see that, right? I think it would just be interesting, right? To have like a decent portion of the map pool not be that. And I feel like NaVi would be adaptive enough to be able to thrive in that kind of scenario where, a lot of other teams, they've maybe got a player who has only played Jet and Chamber for the longest time and literally hasn't touched anything else. So yeah, I'm interested, and I've always liked NaVi. I know people get on their comps. I know people don't like their approach. I think that their approach, I like it. I think it makes sense. I know a lot of people will say it doesn't make any sense, but I think particularly for how like you get a week between each game, I think particularly for the league season, that their approach makes a lot of sense. I think that they could use with maybe a little adjustment for like the tournaments. And focusing on one thing a bit more for the tournament settings, but otherwise, I think they're just going to be good because they are good. Like Xiao, Sugetsu, Zipper, and Artis, like, they're good players.
I would love to go back to a meta where players like Xiao and Sugetsu are the carries of the team. I like that type of Valorant. It's cool to watch, not just like the duelist taking over the round.
Yeah, agree. Well, go on then. Give me your early prediction for NaVi. I'm just going to ask you this question. Do NaVi, with this roster, do they make Masters Madrid? There's only 2 spots available.
Yeah, first seed.
First seed?
Yep.
Okay, that I wasn't expecting that. I'm not sure the first seed will really matter for an 18 tournament, to be honest, but whatever. Okay, BBL. I mean, I've just like dropped almost everyone, I think, other than Brave. No one knows what's going on. They got their first ever sponsorship with
Yay!
Was it Nescafe, I think?
Nescafe, yeah.
So congratulations, BBL. Kind of surprised, to be honest. Not surprised that it's a coffee company, but Turkish makes sense. But surprised, like, I thought BBL had some things going on, but maybe it's just Turkey, who knows. But yeah. Don't really know what to say because, again, I mean, why CNET isn't on this list? Don't know.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Foot. In fact, let's add in Foot to this. Foot are maybe going to drop Kiwi, which, again, if that happens, well, one, why?
Yeah.
One would be like, what? And again, to any other team, if Foot drop Kiwi, I don't know how good his English is, sign him. Don't care how good his English is, sign him. He'll figure it out.
Koi, sign him.
Yeah, literally anyone, just sign Kiwi. He's obviously very good. Don't drop Kiwi. But why CNET isn't even on either of these lists either? Maybe it's just a lack of information, but it seems like such an obvious, massive win to sign, like, other than maybe Alfia, right? The face of Turkish Valorant. And honestly, because he kind of came first and, obviously won champs, like, CNET, you could argue, is still the face of Turkish Valorant. In terms of like his impact on this game, his name, like, conjures up, images of 2021 and him just being unstoppable.
And I'm going to be honest, I think a lot of people gave CNET a ton of flack last year, and yeah, he didn't look great some of the time, but I thought he was pretty good and honestly fairly flexible. Like, he's not the broken Jet CNET that is literally unstoppable, but who is at this point,
Yeah.
I thought his Yoru was actually okay. His Killjoy was actually okay. I think he's proven that he is a tier 1 player even at this point. Yeah. And yeah, probably should be.
I think he's suffering from his own past success, where people are like, people compare him to the old Broken Jet CNET, where he was like the literal best player in the world, you could argue.
Yeah.
And people, anytime he's not playing at that level, it's like, people are disappointed because they've seen it before from him. So yeah, I think you're right. He is getting a bit of a hard rep. As I said, they're keeping Mr. Fallen, keeping Cracks. At the captain is on there. They've let go of Maj.
Yeah, which I think he was the weak link on this team.
Yeah, which, I mean, again though, I would say F rolls, bring in CNET, right? Just get like just get like 5 crack players. Like CNET on that roster, figure out the roles later on. Just go with it, right? And my thing again is Valorant isn't being played at a high enough level to where like you can't. PaperRex are proving this. You can win games if you've got better players than the opponents. Like you can win a lot of games. Just and comp be forgotten, right? Like you can win a lot of games doing that either way. So yeah, I'd still bring in Sentinel and keep Kiwi and just run it in. Cracks on KO, just constant. Like let's go.
Yeah. Interestingly, this team has re-signed the head coach, who infamously looked very lost against PaperRex, but also did take this team to the first like champs for a full Turkish team, which is pretty sick.
And this was like a tier 2 team. You have to remember, like this wasn't even a tier 1.
They basically stuck together, right? And then
this was like a full tier 2 team that hadn't really played in tier 1 before, who made it to multiple international tournaments. Like, they did pretty well. I think most people would have expected FUT at the start of the year to finish, 9th, 10th, probably. And instead they went to Tokyo and champs. And if they do keep most of it together, they'll probably be good. Okay, now on to everyone's favorite team, Karmine Corp. Everyone pretty much is gone, other than maybe Shin. But even Shin might be gone. They've signed Eng as coach, and it has Martin here. Who did Martin play for? Martin played for GMT from Italy, of course. Another one that I did remember. GMT, one of my favorite teams, because they play a ton of Yoru. They were the Euro team. I'll just run. They're playing Phoenix in the last game. They're playing Phoenix on Acend here. They're playing Yoru one bind.
Love it.
Yeah, that one of my favorite teams because they play a ton of Yoru. And he's the guy that was playing Yoru a decent amount there. So who knows? Maybe Karmine Corp are cooking. Enzo, the 5th version of Enzo, is trialing with Karmine Corp as well. Let's not talk about what Karmine Corp will become, although you can touch on Eng if you want to a bit. Let's talk about all the people that they've let go, right? Letting go of Scream and Navera, letting go of their head coach. What do you think of those decisions?
Yes.
You agree?
I think so. I mean, this team was just a cluster all of last year, from their structure, from the way the team was built, from the way the team was run, from the decisions mid-season, from the I heard rumors that they cut Scream's contract in halfway through the season and forced him to continue playing. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like been out there. But I've heard. I
don't scroll the forums.
Like you're not like gremlin like
when you say that, I'm picturing them literally holding a contract up the stream and just being like with scissors and just like literally cutting.
Yeah, they just cut like 3 zeros off the end of his compensation package. I don't know. I've just heard that this team is run extremely poorly, and
well, that showed.
Yeah, I mean it's just obvious from the results, and Scream being given control of the roster, and then not really putting together a roster that makes sense, and then running weird systems that don't make sense, and then no IGL, and then we have an IGL, and then we're kicking people, and people are quitting because the team sucks. Nothing can be worse than last year. I think that this team should. Okay, so here's one problem I have. They bring in Eng, who has kind of shown that he's a very like traditional tack shooter minded type coach, right? Based off of how Gambit played. The structure is very important. So either you just give him full control, build a team, build players, like get the exact players that you want for the structure, and then just do that. Or maybe because this team, I believe, is maybe having some financial problems, full budget, total new young players from tier 2, give them to Eng, develop them into a team, kind of Heretics style. Yeah. Give them a year and see what happens.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I think that would probably be a decent idea, but I guess we'll see what they end up doing. And then Gentlemates, our final team. They're just
Pride of France.
Together. The Pride of France. Gentlemates, weird one for me because they won Ascension. It wasn't like the Guard or even Bleed, where the Guard and Bleed were expected to win. Gentlemates, to me, it felt like were a good team that just for a couple of games just played insane. And got through. you can't obviously expect that to continue throughout the entirety of the next year. So I'm interested to see how well this team does. I think considering that some of the teams will be going, more budget or be going for, kind of maybe very different, to where they were before. Like they could, because they're keeping it together, they could be better than those teams. But I don't have super high expectations for Gentlemates, which honestly, maybe they, this is a bit of a free hit for them, just enjoying being in tier 1. And then, for their second year, maybe that's the year that they'll be, trying to compete and make a lasting legacy on the scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough ask for them to get into the top 2. But I could see them finish in the top half, like playing together for an entire year, coming in against a bunch of teams that are reforming their rosters. Basically, you've got experience together. I mean, I think Existence has proven his worth as a head coach. These guys are obviously talented. I agree that they were sort of a flash in the pan to actually qualify, but it's not like they were bad. They just seemed like maybe a little bit lower in terms of individual skill than Apex and Acend were, but then they put it together at the right time. But with another year and the stability, I mean, cool. They could be pretty good, and we know that their fans and like their support from the org seems to be very high, so that's also a good sign.
Yep, let's move on to our final region, Pacific, and let's actually start with DRX, who reportedly are keeping it the same. What are your thoughts on DRX running it back without? I'm gonna guess running it back with Zest on the roster, but Foxy9 might also still be staying. Don't know, but DRX keeping it the same.
I think that they should bring Glow out of retirement, put Stacks back on just playing Initiator, and then kick Buzz out of the team.
Kick Buzz out of the team?
I don't know, man. What is this team supposed to do? Like,
well, we'll get into something I think they could have done.
I know that you're on the King train, but I think that's like such a side grade, because
no, you're wrong.
Who are you replacing?
Zest.
Zest?
Yeah.
I think Zest is like maybe their most important role player on this team.
Well, you're wrong again.
No, honestly, I feel like this team is they're suffering from the fact that they basically sucked up all of the Korean talent early on in the scene, and the scene the scene is just not developed fast enough for there to be players that are like replacement level for anybody on this team. And like, they're not changing the head coach and the coaching staff, and they're not changing the players. Are they gonna just be a top 4 team forever? Or like,
is that such a bad thing? Like, it's
not
part of this.
It's not, but I think to everybody involved, it feels bad to not be winning. But also, I mean, do you think that this team will win an event?
Here's my DRX copium take a million, right? Masters Tokyo only has 8 teams. Therefore, Madrid. There's less. Oh, yeah, sorry, not Tokyo. Madrid. Masters Madrid only has 8 teams. That means there's less teams to play. There's less games to play and win a tournament. DRX are always go to the start of tournaments. What if that tournament is small enough to where DRX can win Masters Madrid?
DRX are like a Tesla. They only have like 250 miles of battery life. That's as far as they can go, and then they just
But here's
die.
the thing: you can say all this stuff, but like they won the group of death.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. They always start tournaments well.
You're not wrong.
And this is why the Pacific Grand Finals, I thought, for Tokyo, such a big deal that they lost that, because I was actually finally high on DRX, because I thought, this is going to be the first tournament where they start in the playoffs. And DRX starting in the playoffs is a massive problem for everyone else, because they're going to cook some stuff up that you've never seen before, and you're going to be in trouble having to face them. And then you're not going to have much time to prep or have seen, the whole map pool, probably until you get very deep into the tournament. So that's why I was very high on DRX. And I think, I think DRX, look, they finish like 3rd, 4th in these tournaments, right? Like, or whatever, 5th, 6th. They've kind of leveled up to 3rd, 4th quite often, although not in the last tournament. But like, Masters Tokyo, what was it? Where did they finish Masters Tokyo? They finished. They finished 7th, 8th.
Yeah, that was like their worst.
That was
tournament.
their bad tournament. That was their one bad tournament, right? Yeah.
They looked very poor at that tournament.
Yeah.
That was like, it was like they'd practiced with Foxy9 up to the tournament, and then they brought in Zest, and then they did terribly. Yeah.
But like, I still think like we're still talking about them making it that far, right? There really isn't that many teams who have done this so consistently, right? And like, yeah, okay, Tokyo was like that one truly like bad tournament where it looked bad. But like, if you go through the history of pretty much every other team, they've had that tournament or that run as well where it isn't as good, and it's still good enough. And the thing is, DRX are still going to be one of the best teams in Pacific with this team, and kind of like in the NFL as well, right? You build a roster to win your division, right? Like if you can win your division, that means you're going there to all the tournaments all the time. And look, there's going to be a certain amount of luck. There's going to be, you know, in terms of who you play, who you draw, you know, all of that kind of stuff. There's always a certain amount of luck, like how you turn up on the day, that matters in these tournaments. And I just think if I'm DRX, one of these tournaments, we're gonna be the team that like EG just awakens. Right? We're gonna be that team. One of these times, everything's gonna fall in line. The meta's gonna suit us. You know, we're gonna be going in great form. One day it'll be us. And I think that's the DRX copium. Will that actually happen? Probably not. But I mean, that's the copium.
The main thing about this team is that it just seems like they always run out of gas. Like or like the pressure of that, like, let's go to grand finals game is just always a little too much. And they've shown like so much resiliency in like coming back through lower brackets and coming back from super big deficits in games. But it's like, to actually take that next step, I almost wonder if it's like one of those things where they're just like, and you see it in their behind the scenes content where they're like, yeah, we always come in fourth, ha ha ha. At some point that almost like becomes like a psychological block. And if you're not changing players, you're not changing staff, it's like, how do you overcome that?
They need like a Demon 1 personality in the team. Someone who is just like, no, fuck
he's available.
Right? Like,
he's available.
Yeah, Demon 1. That's the change they should make. But, you know, just that like real, like, I feel like with Demon 1's personality, EG would have never been as good without his personality in the team. Without the like, no, fuck you. Because I feel like the rest of the team was probably in the back of their mind thinking, we aren't good enough to do this. Like, you know, but he had that real, like, he thinks, I am the best fucking player in the world. Watch. And I'm going to shoot your body when I kill you, and I don't give a fuck what you think. Like, I feel like DRX need that. That's what they need. They need someone who's just like, because then everyone else is just carried by that. Everyone else is just like, well, I guess we're going along with it. You know, and then it's just like,
Stacks kissing more mouse moments, you know?
But then also just giving someone the middle finger at the same time. Now that would be legendary. Take the fine. The fine would be big,
just
but
the Rob whiz.
Worth it. It'd be worth it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's DRX. Let's move on to the other giant of Pacific as well, PaperRex. Who obviously Jing has gone to military service. And they're signed Monyet from Global Esports. Now that, I like it. I think it's a good signing. I think most people think it's a good signing as well. Everything else is the same. Will PaperRex with Monyet still be the best team in Pacific?
I don't see why not. I mean, I do think that Jing was a special player in the fact that he just seemed to be like so unbelievably fearless. And we've talked about this kind of ad nauseum at this point, but there is something to be said about somebody. It's almost like the Demon 1 styles, where it's just like, I am just going to go in and take this duel, and I don't care what the circumstances are. And recapturing that in somebody is a little bit difficult. And something is not that player. Like, he's crazy, he's super talented, he does do super aggressive stuff, but he's not Jing. And neither is Forsaken. And Monyet, I don't think is that either. But I'm not saying that they can't become like a slightly different version of PaperRex that's just as creative and just as cool, but maybe just not quite the same flavor that they were. Keeping the same culture, it's going to be a little difficult, you know, to come in as an outsider into an established core that has a coach and established culture and fit in comfortably. But it also probably is pretty nice to come in as, you know, he's Indonesian, right? So he's going to come in with Mindfreak and Forsaken, who are also from Indonesia. And so they should understand each other pretty well, at least as like, you know, the cultural barrier shouldn't be that high. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they do. I think it'll be definitely a different team in terms of how they play the game, but it'll still be very cool and very creative.
I'm going to put some pressure on Monette right now. I think he's going to slay. I think he's
Yeah.
going to be absolutely insane.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people probably think Monette's going to come in and he'll do well. My hot take is going to be he's going to be insane in this team.
Okay.
That's going to be my hot take. And like he will be competing with something for like, you know, like the top ratings, the top like, you know, kills, whatever. Obviously it depends what role he's playing. He might not get as many kills, but you know, like in terms of like being a high impact player, I've got a good feeling about Monette. And so I'm all in. So Monette, don't let me down. Don't make me look bad. And yeah, I feel pretty good for PaperRex. Let's switch gears to genuinely one of your favorite teams, ZETA Division, who right now on the spreadsheet for ZETA Division, it has literally everyone in orange with a letter U by it, which means unlikely to stay. Basically, all of ZETA Division are available for teams if they want them. I guess this is budgetary concerns. Otherwise, or is it? I don't know. But what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean the Japanese scene is so opaque to me as far as like how the orgs and stuff are doing. Like we know viewership is high, and it seems like the teams have like crazy amount of fan support. Like if anytime that ZETA Division drops like any piece of merch, it's like instantly sold out.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're probably
doing okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they might be doing fine, and they have like 40 sponsors and stuff. Like Detonation and ZETA both have like an insane amount of sponsors.
Yeah.
But it kind of feels like this roster had reached its apex like a while ago and was never going to get back there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the pressure was getting to Laz, it was getting to Sugar Zero. We both knew that Crow and 10 probably needed to be replaced going into this offseason. They were just too inconsistent. Depp, I think, is just their best player, period. And so I would be sad to see him leave because I think he is, you know, a franchise level player, build around him. But at the same time, like maybe this is one of those situations where it's like you kind of captured the magic, you had everything, and it's kind of tapered off. Like you still have the brand. Maybe you just like go find a bunch of like new Japanese players and just like
this is the thing
build
as
a
well.
team.
Apparently, ZETA have hired a translator.
Okay.
So it could be that they're going elsewhere. Now, if I was ZETA, there's a player as well that I think would fit into this, and that's Crystal from Scars, who apparently is a free agent as well.
Mm-hmm.
Played on a Japanese team. Is one of those like, you know, Russians from the east of Russia side.
Right. Crystal and Jemkin from Scars were the two best players on that team.
Yeah. And he's an IGL as well, right? And I know that Laz is like a perfectly fine IGL. If they did want to keep Laz, that would make a lot of sense. But like, that seems like a good idea to me. That seems like it would make sense to me.
Keep it within the Japanese scene, kind of, at least.
Yeah,
initially.
like a player that the Japanese fans will still know, right? Because obviously he was on a Japanese team before, so it's not like you're bringing in someone from, you know, nowhere. And yeah, they really need to keep Depp and Laz, I think. Like that just makes sense. I like. You're just not. I'd be surprised, especially with Depp. I'd be surprised if you could find a better player. Like I really, really would be surprised if you could find a better player.
And the crazy thing is, they also have question marks with the head coach and the assistant coach. And there was a Twitter post from the official ZETA Division account that was literally just like an open application for all positions. It was literally coach, player, like
that
everything.
To me says that like that is budget though.
Yeah.
That's what that feels like. Like if we just fully like trial everything.
Yeah.
Right. That feels so weird. So who knows what's going on behind the scenes? But like, if you get rid of like Laz in particular, feels like the soul of the team. It feels like if you get rid of Laz, and particularly if you get rid of a couple of the other players as well, it's just not the same team. Right, like that whole like the ZETA Division stuff. Like you're a fan of ZETA Division. If they got rid of, let's say they got rid of 10, Crow, and Laz, you know, so it's just Depp and Sugar Zero left, would you still be a fan of ZETA Division?
Yeah, I would.
Oh, okay.
I
There you
would.
go.
Because
Number
I
one
think
fan.
I think that those two other players like do have sort of part of that magic, you know, like Depp and Sugar Zero. But like,
If they got rid of all 5,
I mean, then it is totally different. But it's still like,
you're just loyal to the Z.
no.
Oh,
I mean,
sorry, the Z.
it would be a totally different team. But I think I would still be interested to see what they do. Like,
Okay.
you know, it's not like like for Detonation. Obviously, they don't have that ZETA Division moment at an international tournament, but it's just like I just don't really.
They don't have
care.
any wins. What do you
I don't
mean?
really care what this team does. You know.
Yeah.
ZETA Division, I would just be interested to see what the org does, because like the org has done cool things and shown like that they maybe know what they're doing to some extent, but maybe they don't. Who knows?
Who knows? Okay, let's move on to Detonation as well, who obviously they didn't win a single game.
No.
They're blowing it up. There isn't much information here right now. They might be getting Lakia. Seems like they're going for this, Korean, Japanese, maybe hybrid stuff. Not really much to say about this one. I mean, we talk about teams where it can't get any worse. It literally cannot get any worse. Like, there is no way of it getting worse.
Let me tell you
won a single
something,
game.
Detonation FocusMe. Do not sign anybody. Sign a coach. Do the actual bare minimum of getting somebody with experience who can build you a system. Stop randomly signing players and hoping for the best. Build from the ground up with a coaching staff and allow them to build you a team.
Makes sense. Speaking of teams with no team,
Dude,
GenG.
Go off on this.
GenG have dropped every single player other than Meteor. Meteor's a good player. Nice roster. He can't 1v5 every round, though, is the problem. It has Lakia here as a question mark, and literally no one else. Coaching staff doesn't exist. Players don't exist. We got literally just 2 people on this spreadsheet. Every other team has like a bunch of things, going on. There's at least a coaching staff there potentially, but not GenG. GenG are just out in the wilderness. They don't know what they're doing. And you know what really is annoying? I like King. Okay, yeah. King from GenG, I think, is an insane player. I might be higher on King than other people. I understand that. That's fine if you don't think King is as good as I do. But probably most of you with a brain and some eyes have seen that King is a pretty good player. And so the thing that annoys me is it's like with Team Liquid, right? I doubt that King was a massive, massive problem in GenG. I doubt that, right? Maybe is. Maybe King is just an absolute knob, right? Maybe everyone hates him. I doubt it, but maybe that's the case. But even so, it doesn't make sense to get rid of good players. It just doesn't make sense. And again, I understand maybe it's a budget thing. Maybe who the fuck knows what's going on, right? Who knows? But the thing is, it doesn't make sense to get rid of good players. And so you're getting rid of a good player. And then he's going to your biggest rival as well. And I don't know if it's their biggest rival, but T1, definitely a massive other Korean rival. Now he's going to just be absolutely fucking you from T1. and you're just going to have to live with that, GenG, for the rest of time, right? Man. Oh, this org. And it's I get it, right? Getting rid of the coaching staff, I think, actually makes some sense because they were really good for a time and then it completely fell to the floor, right? So I understand making changes because it really did get really bad really quick. Yeah. So it makes sense to make changes, but
maybe that was King's fault.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what GenG would say. Well, TMV, what you don't understand is a massive fall in performance was solely down to King.
As he was the only player playing well for the entire season.
It just doesn't make any sense. And so, yeah, GenG, I don't know what to say. And again, there's literally no one here on the spreadsheet. So it's not even we can even say oh, well, at least they're picking up some nice players here and there. Unless they sign fucking Aspas or, something like that. I'm not a Demon 1 GenG. I'm not interested. Okay, GenG. So I don't care. Let Meteor go as well. Give him some freedom. Get him off this shit org.
Wow, that's even more passionate than we get about Team Liquid. I like it. It's spicy.
I don't care about Team Liquid.
Let's move on to everybody's sort of meh favorite Korean Valorant org. The most storied Korean esports org has been extremely meh in Valorant, but did some interesting things last year. And this year, with the signings that they've announced, I don't know much about Izu. We know about King.
King is the faker of Valorant. You heard it here first.
We know about ZETA, and we know about Saya Player. Zacurate or Exacurate or Excurate, Forsaken's older brother. No idea how he is as a player. Hasn't played any Tier 1 Valorant. We'll see. Doesn't speak Korean. Maybe he does. I don't know. He's Indonesian. But but
it's better
this
than
team's
GenG.
cooking. This team is cooking.
This team, I think that, yeah. I mean, again, maybe Exacura and Izu, maybe they're just like, I mean, they could literally be anything. But you're just going to assume that between Saya, Zeta, King, that 3 core is very strong. And from there, like, you know, you just need players who are like decent, and you'll probably finish in, you know, the top like 5 or 4 Pacific, to be honest. Because I do think that they've got kind of everything going. They kept Autumn as the head coach, it seems. And yeah, don't know what's going to happen with Carpe. It says here that he's maybe unlikely to stay.
He was awful at Champions. He improved during the season, and I think did a bit better than I expected him to, but he was terrible at Champions. He was like a clear step below basically every other player there.
Yeah. But I feel like most people are probably pretty high on this T1 roster. I think a lot that, weirdly, considering they have like 2 players that I have no expectation of and no knowledge of, like, but I think most people will be like, this team is going to do probably pretty well. And we'll see how that goes, because sometimes, you know, it really might not. But as I said, they do have the faker of Valorant on their team. So
yep.
How bad can it be?
Just a quick note on Izu. Essentially a Jet 1 trick from the Japanese Tier 2 scene last year, playing on Jadeite.
Well, that always goes well. Something good.
Yeah.
You know? Jet 1 trick right now, that's what's meta.
Yep.
Everyone knows that. So yeah, well, you've already got Sire player there. Just play Jet twice, I guess. Okay, let's move on to Team Secret, shall we?
Yep.
Who are mostly keeping it together. They got rid of Warbirds, their head coach, which I think some people were a bit surprised by, but we'll have to see. Who did they get rid of?
Dubstep has stepped down or was let go.
And they apparently are looking at someone called Sanity, who I'm not familiar with, but
comments on my YouTube videos from time to time, and has been for like 2 years.
Must be very, very good. Looks pretty handsome in his picture here. Watches your videos. Was playing for a team called Yonkos.
Who was very mid in the scene.
Don't know much about Yonkos, I'll be honest. Played a lot of Jet. This is the thing, right? If you want to be a Tier 1 player, just play Jet. Just play Jet and get kills. That's the only stat they look at, apparently.
Yep.
But actually, that does make sense for this team, because they are missing a potential Jet. So actually, that kind of that does make sense to pick up like a kind of opping player if that's what they need, because that's maybe what they need.
Randomly, also, one thing that's worth noting is that Yonkos was playing in North American tournaments as recently as June last year. So it might just be a bunch of like Filipino kids that are living in America playing. So
okay,
I don't know.
Okay, maybe makes sense. But yeah, that's the team. I mean, Team Secret were a decent team. Honestly, with this roster, I would expect kind of the same. So either get in as their coach, but I would expect kind of similar results where, you know, they're not near the bottom, but maybe not near the top, kind of one of those middle of the pack teams. I think probably most likely for them. What do you think?
If their performance falls off, then we know that Warbirds was doing a lot of work for this team. Is basically how I'd put it. Because I don't think, I mean, Dubstep was actually like relatively consistent and good.
Yeah.
But he wasn't like the carry of the team by any extent. And so if this team like massively falls off, keeping basically the same team, but except for the coach, then they made a mistake.
Yeah. Okay, RRQ.
Your favorite team.
They're not my favorite. You know, Ewok was in my Twitch chat once, so
one time. Okay, cool.
Well, only one time that I know of. He was trying to defend his Reyna pick at lock-in on Lotus. Didn't age well. So yeah, aged well for me, not for Ewok. But anyway, RRQ mostly keeping it together, it seems. EJ here has a question mark. We've got Estrella. Who did Estrella play for? Again, there's just names that you just know of in Valorant when you
Was
watch
he on D+? Yeah, I
D
was gonna
plus
say.
esports. Yes. So you just pick up these names from, like, you know, you watch like the Ascension tournament in Pacific, and it's just that you have these names out there, and he's one of them that apparently is like signed, confirmed, going to RRQ. He is Korean, so I mean, I guess it's going to be an English speaking roster. I guess if they've already signed him, like, yeah, I'm just going to assume
This is the real global esports, by the way. They have players and coaches from everywhere.
Yeah, he works from South Africa, which is kind of crazy, really. I'm kind of interested in that story. Like, you know, you don't get many. They didn't even have servers in South Africa. Like, how did he get here? But yeah, from all over. I mean, again, RRQ. Look, I liked RRQ, and in particular, there's one map on that split game where I can't remember who they were against, but they absolutely destroyed someone, and I was just like, this team is insane. And they were just hitting every shot, and I was like, holy! Because I think that RRQ, when they're playing well, like, it actually looks really good. But then, you know, they're an inconsistent team, right? But they've got it in them to actually be like quite good. And I don't know how good Estrella is, to be honest, but I hold hope for RRQ, because from where they started and everyone was memeing on this team, and everyone thought this team was like, you know, like DFM levels bad.
Yeah.
Like, but they weren't even in the same like region as DFM, right? Like, there was a massive, massive difference between
Technically,
those
they
teams.
were in the same region. It's called Pacific.
Oh my god, shut up.
Let's talk about Talon Esports.
Yeah, let's move on. RRQ, I like them. They'll be good.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't really know what to think about this team. Like,
yeah.
They're keeping a decent amount of the talent that was good last year, and then maybe replacing a couple that were hit or miss.
Talon, go on your massive rant about Talon. I know you've been storing it in you to really, really go off on Talon. So here's the floor. Go off.
I don't care about this team.
Okay, nice. Let's move on.
No, I mean, here's the thing. Like, what is this team? I mean, they're keeping most of their team. Like, Jip Boys, Patapan, Cruz, Garnets. Who are they missing?
No Sushi and no
Sushi.
Who's the other one that they're missing?
It's just Sushi. Their head coach, I guess, is also not there.
No, there's someone else who's missing. They benched Sushi midway through last year. Who am I forgetting?
Did they?
Fox. They're missing Fox.
Oh. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, what is this team? I feel like they got worse since Patapan came back. But we also know that he's crazy good at the game. But also, that's usually when he's playing Duelist. But he's not playing Duelist because his hand hurts. But he's still grinding the game all the time. I don't know what's going on. Garnets was good. Jip Boys was surprisingly good. Cruz is crazy. He's good, but also really wild, and their strats are awful, but then also fine. I don't know. I don't really care what this team does until they show me something consistent, I guess. What about you?
It's weird because the old Xersha team was actually like, you know, a team that would make these like, you know, the old Xersha team was like better than Team Secret, better than Bleed, better than RQ, better than, like, you know, a lot of these other teams from the old Pacific days. So look, they're making a head coach change. Maybe it was just Zeus was just like crazy and just getting them to do stuff that just made no sense. I guess we'll find out. Maybe the team's crazy though, and it's just them. Well, obviously you have to see who they pick up. I assume it's going to be some Thai player that, you know, probably me and you have never heard of. But like, yeah, we'll see. I think there's talent in the Thai scene. I mean, even like Garnets and Jip Boys, right, who are unknowns coming in, like, you know, are pretty good players. So I assume there's probably enough talent there to bring in someone else who's pretty good. And then it's just putting it all together and just not being too crazy and just sticking the landing. Let's go to Global, who don't have a team. They got Blaze King. That's a good signing. That's a good start.
He was good on Boom. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. They got a coaching staff. At least they haven't full GenG'd it. But Global, who knows what they'll do? It's Global Esports. Maybe they'll bring in Ye. No Indians on this team. It seems like.
I'm mad. I'm mad on behalf of over 1 billion people. I think that this is a team. They're the one Indian team.
Yeah.
Just commit. Commit to being bad, develop the Indian talent scene. I don't care. I don't care if you win. I know you care if you win, but who cares? Because you're not beating DRX, you're not beating PaperRex, and you're not beating Bleed, so you're not going to any tournaments next year. Just be awful for a year and bring in a bunch of Indian talent and develop the Indian talent scene. There's a billion fucking people in this country. Surely there's some good Valorant players. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't really disagree. I mean, even just keeping one, right? Just keep one. Just keep one and just play them. And even if it doesn't go well, right? You just like, representation does matter. Right,
Yeah.
like it does matter, and people like if you're an Indian fan, and like honestly, if you're Riot, I think you would want Global to keep an Indian player, so the Indian fans are invested. And sure, they're probably still going to support GE either way, but any success that you did have with an Indian player is like magnitude 10 amplified if you have an Indian player versus not, right? Yep. So yeah, I kind of agree.
John Olsen has been trialed, and I like John Olsen because of his name.
Yeah, that's like great. That name goes hard, especially for like a Thai player. Like he's just like gone like to Denmark on holiday and just been like, that's gonna be my IGN now, John Olsen. And let's finish now with Bleed, who are keeping 3 of their players. They could only keep 3 of their players.
Yeah, they would have kept their whole team, but they couldn't.
Yes, because of age restrictions, and so they are apparently bringing in someone called Egoist, who is rumored to go to PaperRex, I think. So, like when it was rumored about Jing going down, everyone's like, "Oh, there's this kid called Egoist who's really good, who will be the replacement. Don't worry about it." So I assume the Egoist is pretty good. I don't know much about him myself. And then we've also got a trial of Aspas here. Now, this is very Bleed because apparently this is the way that esports works, where all these esports like orgs have no money, and then some of them though maybe do have a bit of money, but then Bleed have like money, like they've got like actual like giga money.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. And like Scary said it last year that he got an offer that was life changing, is what he said. I'm pretty sure that he could like it's life changing for his whole family is how big the offer from Bleed was. So if that is the case, and they can just throw the absolute mega bag at anyone, Aspas isn't a bad choice, to be honest. That would be fun to see at the very least. I kind of hope it happens that an Aspas, Demon 1, a Yay, go for it, right? All these rumors, do it, Bleed, do it, because it'd be fun.
It would be fun. I mean, I think that this is a team that is very, very, very likely to potentially steal a spot to a Masters tournament from DRX or PaperRex if they slip up. I have a lot of faith in this team, and one of the reasons I have a lot of faith in this team is because of the staff. Like, everybody kind of knows Ominous at this point from Twitter, but he legitimately is very, very good at scouting and data work and stuff like that. And then from everybody that I've talked to,
I could scout Aspas, to be fair.
I'm not talking about Aspas. I'm talking about building the rest of this team and like fitting them together. Shut up, TMV. I was on a roll. I was gonna give Legia, however you pronounce it. He also has lots of people have said that he is good as a coach, and his results speak for themselves. I don't think Aspas is going here.
No,
I'm pretty sure it's going to be Yay, but
okay,
I could be wrong.
I'll take that, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be. Although now with Demon 1 available, who knows? The one thing I do know is that it's going to be a top 3 duelist in the world on this team. Period.
I mean, if you got the bag and everyone else is struggling to pay players, then yeah, like they could, like that's where you would go, right? Like if you're getting offered like half the salary to play, somewhere, or double elsewhere, most people are going to pick the double, right? So if Bleed can offer that, then yeah, I don't see how they wouldn't, to be honest. And so yeah, if they do sign some like super high, super correct, like super well known player in the scene, then a lot of people are going to be watching this org as well, to see what they do. And I'm pretty excited, and you seem pretty high on them. There's a real chance here with the Guard and Bleed. I feel like less so with Gentle Mates, but particularly with those two, like they could really show up a lot of these other tier 1 teams. Like,
I
they
think
could
so.
make them look really bad. Like if the
Yeah.
guard and bleed like do really well, just like straight off the bat, that's gonna be a bit of like a slap in the face to like all these other tier 1 teams. Like, oh yeah, you guys don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
Like you guys are not good at this.
Dude, I mean, the thing is, like, these teams have been forged through like the most grueling process possible to be like a good team, and everybody else is like, we're just sitting here in our little penthouses, like, oh, I get a job because I'm friends with the coach. I mean, that's maybe too harsh, but
Some cases it's not.
I totally agree that I think Bleed and like you said, the G2 or whoever has that guard roster, they could very well like be smoking teams at the beginning of next year.
Yeah,
just roll them up, smoking that loud
Sentinels
pack. Okay, smoking that GenG pack for sure. Fuck them. Yeah. Smoking that EG pack twice. Smoking that C9
really
pack.
I mean, other than King getting dropped, I actually kind of agree with dropping everyone else. But I just thought it'd be fun to just go off on them. But anyway, I think that's it. We went through all the teams.
But China has a sheet, and we know a lot about the Chinese scene.
Yeah, we're not even gonna.
No.
Look, we could quickly run through some of the teams. Here we go.
We can just talk about the teams. Sense. We don't know the players, but yeah.
Sense, Billy,
Yep.
Weibo Gaming, that makes sense. NIP, go on, explain that. How have they got into China?
Well, from what I've seen, NIP is an org that is desperate to try and find a place where they'll be relevant. So they went to South America for a while, didn't work. Yeah. Now they're going to China. It's a new emerging market. Perhaps we can, gain some fans and followers there.
I'm surprised other teams haven't tried that, to be honest.
I would imagine it's pretty hard to get into the Chinese market. Like, there's some huge orgs that are missing, by the way. Like, where's LGD? One of the most storied Chinese orgs ever. They're not here.
Don't ask me, bro.
Where's RNG? Royal Never Give Up. Yeah, Invictus Gaming.
I literally made a video about them today.
Invictus? The Sunset game. The Sunset game.
Yeah, the Sunset game. Yeah. RNG.
Well, Invictus Gaming they've been in esports forever.
Yeah, I know
they're very old.
Top Esports, what a name.
Top. Oh my God.
Oh my God is a team. Yeah, I mean, that's my team right there. Oh my God. Not even oh my God gaming, just oh my God.
Here's a hot take.
Oh my God, we got in.
Here's a hot take for you.
Go on.
Chinese VCT will be the most entertaining league to watch next year.
Unbelievable.
And it won't be close.
That's a cold take. That's a cold take.
It won't be close.
Now here's the thing. Will it be like the best Valorant? Will it? No, absolutely not, right? But in terms of pure entertainment, like just watching it with your brain switched off, absolutely 100%. It's going to be, I don't know what times they'll play the games at. Is it being based in Beijing or Shanghai?
I would assume so.
Don't know exactly where it's being put either, but it definitely adds a different element because as I've said this whole year, like people before in NA, they maybe knew about PaperRex and DRX. Other than that, they didn't know what the fuck was going on in most of those other teams, right? Like Chet's coming out and calling Xerxia like cringe comps, like all that kind of stuff. Like like I even people within the scene didn't know what the fuck was going on, like outside of their own region. But I feel like the addition of the partnered leagues like makes it very, very clear. Like everyone now knows like the names on like like pretty much like all of the teams. Like it's very easy to kind of digest. So adding in the Chinese scene as well. It's just going to be another thing where you just get more familiar, even though it'll probably be more like, I doubt that, will there be English commentary on these games?
Probably not. But
yeah, don't know. Yeah. But, like it's just an extra thing. And I guess it'll be interesting to say the least. And yeah, I'm excited to be honest, because Chinese Valorant, how long do you give it before Chinese teams start? When did the first Chinese team win a tournament?
I think one of them will make the finals next year in an event. And I don't think
2025. I was going to say 2025.
I think next year. I think next year. I think 2024.
You think next year?
No, sorry. Not next season. I mean the following year.
Yeah, so 2025.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they'll get very close next year, though.
Okay, well, there you go. Look forward to that and our new Chinese overlords. And yeah, I will, and we will, I guess, probably do one of these in maybe a couple of weeks' time. And hopefully more teams will have full rosters then, and we can actually, fully like dive in and go, GenG, what the fuck are you doing?
So if you want more TMV molding, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.